Hi everyone. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there with you guys today, but I did just want to take a couple minutes to connect what we just talked about to a real world situation. So the real world scenario that chapter 5 of the textbook covers involves a scandal at KPMG. So to give you some background, Scott London, a former KPMG partner, admitted to passing stock tips about clients that he was overseeing the audits for to a friend who gave him cash and other gifts. So to back up a little bit, London was an audit partner at the Los Angeles branch of KPMG, and he had worked for the company for over 30 years. These tips that he was giving went to his friend Brian Shaw, who was basically like a golfing buddy, who then traded stocks based upon the confidential information. And according to prosecutors in London's trial, he actually admitted to, quote, reading him news releases before they were issued, telling him about planned acquisitions, and giving him advance word about company earnings. So Shaw's trading patterns eventually later on caught the attention of authorities, not even of KPMG themselves, but of government authorities, and he was approached by the FBI. So this clearly scared Shaw, and he agreed to record conversations with Scott London in return for leniency. So this involved being mic'd up in conversations with him and even handing him cash on the street, and the FBI taking photos of that encounter. So while London has come forward and admitted that what he did was wrong and that KPMG was in no way involved or had knowledge of his actions, this scandal actually led KPMG to resign as auditor for the two companies involved, which were Herbalife and Skechers. It also required KPMG to withdraw several audits for the two companies because they could no longer confirm the validity of them, with Scott London being the head of those audits, which created costly implications for those companies related to getting their financial statements re-audited by a new firm, and also really wrecked the trust of KPMG and especially of that branch. And so in exchange for the tips, London said that Shaw gave him discounts on watch, bought him dinners from time to time, and even would just hand him cash. So after a trial in 2014, London was actually sentenced to 14 months in prison, and he was ordered to pay a $100,000 fine. So the crimes actually occurred from 2010 to 2012, and he had admitted his guilt after being found out in 2013, and then was eventually sentenced after a trial in 2014. So in the time between being sentenced and serving his time in prison, London actually spent time speaking at continuing education classes about ethics and sharing his story to warn and educate other CPAs, both present CPAs doing their continuing education and also future CPAs, that they know what the oath that they're taking is in regards to integrity and confidentiality. So it's important to know that these continuing education classes really do make a difference, and they really are something to pay attention to, especially in regards to ethics. And so when asked about how he reconciled his actions in an interview of sharing client information while also violating the same rules that he was attesting to be following, he answered, quote, "To be honest, I can't. I knew the rules and followed them for 26 years. I take full responsibility for what I did, but I am at a loss to say exactly why I allowed myself to break my moral and ethical code." So this goes to show that even if he didn't have intentions in the beginning of breaking his moral and ethical code, and he knew what he was meant to do in this situation, he was swayed by outside sources. And I also, an interesting fact that I found in one of the other interviews was that the rewards that he was getting from Shaw in return for this information weren't even a drop in the bucket compared to his salary at EY. So it's not like he was really doing it for the money. It was honestly a lapse of judgment, a lapse of thought, and, wanting to help a friend out, but really not understanding the serious implications that it could have on him and also on the trustworthiness of his firm and who he is representing. He talked about how much the case had an implication on his family and on his employees and the people he'd been working with for over 30 years. He said that he didn't really have much of a relationship with those coworkers anymore that he'd been friends with for 30 years. So it's important to know that this ethical dilemma didn't just impact the company financially or impact the two companies that he was auditing, but it also had a really big personal impact. So overall, London violated the principles of integrity, confidentiality, and professionalism. He knew what he was doing was wrong and it was dishonest, And it's important for other CPAs and firms to see the consequences of violating ethical standards. And that's why this case brought so much public attention. And it's against the professional standard of ethics that he's been taught to uphold. So it's important to know that standard of ethics and uphold it, which is why this presentation and this real world case is so important.